arena, I played against it, but honestly, I only played it against in best of one. So I didn't even know it was a actual standard thing.
There seems to be a little team deciding to play this deck, because we have 2 copies into day 2 of Boros Monument of essentially the same list here. This one is piloted by Javier Amados. Whoop, sorry, from I assume Spain. As we can take a look at the deck list, I don't know if that's the one coming up right now. It looks like actually might be looking at our Is It Prowess opponent at the moment. Who? Oh wait, this is not. Is it that match? I think this is not the match I expected it to be.
We might have a different backup feature match, so let's
right, there might have been the pairings that change. Yes, this is completely different. Okay, so let's see what this is. I think this is due to some repairing issues. No, it's just a completely okay.
We do have here Azorius Omniscience, another deck that is giving quite a lot of talk. Very fast deck, comboing very fast, I mean.
Ah, I see. Okay, you're going to like this matchup. Okay, so we have... hopefully we get to see the Boros Monument players later, but this is the classic Azorius Omniscience play we see, actually with a copy of Thundertrap Trainer added to this deck list. I kind of like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Going with the 4 Meringue River Regent, 4 Rolling Dragonstorm as a draw engine, and then having the win condition, in this case, being 1 copy of Founding of the Third Path. So the idea is that once you put your Omniscience into play with Abuela's Awakening, that's the main game plan. Get Omniscience into the graveyard, reanimate it with Abuela's Awakening for just 4 mana. Now all your spells are free. You can keep chaining these card draw effects. Eventually you find your 1 copy of Founding of the Third Path, mill your opponent for 4. That's not the usual mode of this card. Mill opponent for 4. Then you play Meringue River Region, returning the Founding. You can replay the Founding, play a second Meringue, and the dragons can keep bouncing each other. The River Regent says when it comes into play, return 2 target permanents to their owner's hands. So you return the Founding the Third Path and the other River Regent, and this is a loop that just allows you to mill up the opponent. So it's a different win con than the invasion of Arcavios we saw earlier, the one that we've seen from Sean Goddard and Marco Del Pivo, who make the Day-2 with that version. This is a different take on it. And 1 copy of Refute in the main deck. I love this. Counter target spell, draw a card, and discard a card. Another way to counter something similarly to Confounding Riddle. But this one is also acting as a discard outlet for Omniscience. I think this deck looks beautifully built. 1 copy of Spell Pierce, just to keep the opponents honest. If they're trying to keep up 2 mana for negate, just wait until 5, and you can Abuela's Awakening, get around that.
I love that. And let's take a look at what these Azorius Omniscience player is going to play against. It's my favorite deck, I must say, and not a lot of representation here this weekend. So I'm excited to see a fellow Golgari Midrange enjoyer.
Here from Makovey.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, Simon, Golgari Midrange was once upon a time one of the most played decks in Standard. It lost a bit of popularity, but love to see it back here. And do we have any new cards from the new set? Looks like maybe not, but what we do have is that Ballot main. I love that, I have to say. Ready for some discard spells. Not going to fix that.
And also just not a bad card for the strategy here. I mean, you are a Llanowar Elf ramping into chunky green and black creatures like Sentinel and Preacher of the Schism. And the Obstinate Bailiff just kind of is a good follow-up to these things. Obviously not the most powerful card, 4/4 against 4 life. But against these red decks, it's totally serviceable. So I do like the main deck Obstinate Bailiff here from Makovey. 2 copies of Harvester of Misery, not going to be quite important in this particular matchup. The cards that are going to be important here are the 3 copies of Duress in the main deck and the 2 copies of Tranquil Frillback. So the Frillback can be used to, if there's a turn 2 Rolling Dragonstorm, discarding the Omniscience, that leaves the Omniscience vulnerable in the graveyard to get exiled by the Frillback. So the game plan for the Omniscience player might be to try and wait until you have 6 mana so you can play Rolling Dragonstorm and Abuela's Awakening on the same turn. Hopefully then also having a second Omniscience in hand that you can start as your first opportunity you get, you play the Omniscience from hand for free so that you insulate yourself from your Omniscience that you're just reanimating getting killed. Because it will turn into a creature and is vulnerable to removal spells. So that's the general game plan here. I don't know if we're watching these players in game 1 as well, post-board of course. the things change a lot for the Golgari. We have watching the full match. Okay.
I have to say I play this deck quite a while and usually quite a bit, and usually I do struggle against Omniscience. The only really way that we have to exile from the graveyard is that Restless Cottage, which does cost quite a bit to activate.
Well, yeah, that and the Frillback, right? But yeah,
the
Restless Cottage is also another key card. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So let's see what happens here, and that duress can also be pretty good, depending on what it can find on the other side, maybe taking care of an Abuelo's Awakening. We start, oh my god. So we start with the Surveillance into Omnis.
Wow, and there's an Abuelo's in hand already. So now, Luffy being on the play here means if there's no Lanois Elf, but it is a Lanois Elf. So if Mako has a Frillback, he actually has time to do this before the Abuelo's Awakening hits. But I don't think there is a Frillback in hand at the moment, and it's not enough time to be able to use the Restless Cottage. So now Guglielmo's goal right now is to find that second Omniscience, keep it in hand, it's right there. There it is.
There is a duress though, so that duress can maybe take care of the Abuelo's Awakening.
Oh, I see. Yes, that would be... Yes, that's another way to change the way this goes. So yeah, you could take away the Abuelos. Actually, this founding of the third path can be a way to get back the Abuelos, but only on turn 5, which then leaves Marco the time to get rid of it at the graveyard with the Restless Cottage.
So yeah, we have the duress here revealing a hand full of good things, and I mean...
I actually wonder if Guglielmo was supposed to... I think he just drew the founding off the Rolling Dragonstorm. I think that must be what happened there. Because that meant that he wasn't able to play the founding on turn 2 and then play the Dragonstorm for free off that.
So yeah,
of course, taking away the Abuelos. Now, Guillermo needs to find a second copy, but also has that founding of the first path, which will... you can actually just play it on chapter 2, right? Just play it on chapter 2, mill yourself for 4, and the next turn, you have the Abuelo's Awakening able to be flashed back. And there is no counterplay for Marco here unless he has that Tranquil Fillback. So, it's a bit of a gamble from Guglielmo, but the read-ahead mechanic on these Dominaria sagas coming in huge here. Will Guglielmo go for it? Of course, the issue is that he's also leaving himself with just a single card he can play for free in that moment of truth. So it's not the most perfect scenario here, even if you get to go off next turn, because you could easily fizzle with just one card in hand.
Okay, so...
And actually, Mako has the Maelstrom Pulse to kill off the founding and prevent this from happening anyways. Wow, that's a lot of intricacies going on in this matchup. I love how much weird sorts of interaction there are between these players.
That's true. Very interesting match here. And players are 7-1, so not quite undefeated, but doing pretty well for themselves here in this tournament.
They certainly know their decks quite well, and Guillermo making this tough decision, playing out the founding. Does he go for chapter 2 immediately, or taking it slowly?
Looks like
allowing that Restless Cottage to work. Taking the slow path instead, playing out this moment of truth, seeing if you can find the Abuelos off the top instead. There is a Meringue River Regent. That's a perfect card draw spell.
Yeah, but no Abuelo's Awakening there. So passing the turn with 1 mana open. Let's draw a card here for Marco that draws, I think, a second Restless Cottage. So here passing the turn with 4 mana open. Second chapter now.
Oh, and that's a confounding riddle, so that could counter something important. But yeah, Marco just passing the turn here, expecting there could be Abuelo, so keeping up an instant speed removal, it seems, and that probably a go for the throat looks like there is in hand. But Guillermo is not interested in doing that on this turn. Not interested in trying to go off here, doesn't even have the Abuelos to do so, and is instead aiming to mill over some cards with this founding. Doesn't need to mill himself because he has all the cards he could need in the graveyard at the moment. Next turn is when you can go off with this founding, letting you rebuy the Abuelo's Awakening. But of course, then Mako can go for the Restless Cottage. So we'll see here, if the Restless Cottage is animated and attacking, if it removes the Omniscience from the graveyard, Guillermo can then go Meringue River Regent, discarding the Omniscience and win that way. So Marco would have to remove the Abuelo's Awakening from the graveyard with this Restless Cottage.
Let's see what happens. There's a swamp drawn here for Marco Vey.
So it's a kind of essentially, if you remove if there's a second Abuelos, you get punished by removing the Abuelos, and if there's a second Omniscience, you get punished by removing the Omniscience. Of course, you have maybe a little bit of an indication that there is no second Abuelos because Guillermo didn't go for it, but you were also bluffing something. So yeah, Marco just deciding to go for, I'm just going to bank on, yes, you do get to get back your Omniscience here, but I will have my my answer in terms of this Omniscience, or in terms of this, go for the throat to kill your Omniscience as it becomes a creature.
When I play against this deck with my Golgari deck, I feel pretty scared of attacking because of the 1 mana bounce spell that Azorius Omniscience does run.
Yeah, it's true. You definitely don't want to enable that here as well. And Guillermo just saying, yeah, I don't want to play my Meringue River Regent right now. I think I'd rather play it on the dragon side, potentially. If you find a second Dragon Storm that actually takes more cards into your deck than just using it for the Omen mode. And immediately slamming out that second Omniscience. Now Marco has no way of interacting. Is still representing that Terra Sunder. So Guillermo might want to... might want to hold on to that Confounding Riddle as an extra layer of protection here. But here we see the Meringue River Regent coming down, picking up Rolling Dragonstorm, and playing the second Regent, and this allows him to draw his entire deck, looping both of these dragons here. So Marco has to respond with a Go for the Throat, which will then get countered. So Guillermo is right now explaining how the loop works, and... Oh yeah, and Marco just says, yes, but go for it, because I do have a Go for the Throat, so I need to be able to respond.
So
and they're trying to communicate here. Both players are Italian, so they should be able to communicate clearly, but...
Okay, now taking care of that.
But yeah, there's the Farmer's Dispersal, just bouncing the dragon. Second Go for the Throat, counterspell, stopping it, and yeah, Guillermo had it all lined up right there, with going off with extra protection. And Marco, of course, it makes sense that you would feel safe passing with 2 Go for the Throats in your hand, but was actually punished there for not attacking with the Restless Cottage. And now we see Guillermo just looping both of these dragons. That's exactly what's happening. Each time he plays the dragon, he bounces the other dragon and the Rolling Dragonstorm, and so that takes him 2 cards into his deck. At some point he'll find Abuelo's Awakening. He can use that to reanimate the Founding of the Third Path, because that is an enchantment.
True.
And that is how he can then do the loop that I explained at the beginning of the match, where you loop the 2 dragons and the Founding, milling your opponent for 4 each time. And that's how the game ends right there. Beautiful Omniscience play from Guillermo there.
I have to say, Omniscience might be one of the decks that can struggle a bit post-sideboard, just because it's so vulnerable for graveyard hate, right, Simon? Or you think no?
Yes, it is quite vulnerable to graveyard hate, and there is, we saw the ways of hating on the graveyard from the main deck in this Golgari deck, and it gets even worse post-board as we see 2 copies of Ghost Vacuum, 2 Heritage Reclamation, as well as 3 copies of Deep Cavern Bat that are going to come in. It's actually a very clean-looking sideboard for a very messy-looking main deck from the Golgari deck. Kind of surprising, honestly. There's a bunch of like 2-ups and 1-ups in the main deck, but then the sideboard is just 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. Very nice looking. I do love a clean and focused sideboard. That is exactly what I like to see.
Me too. And Simon, who do you think has the advantage here post-sideboard? Do you still think the Omniscience deck is going to be a bit ahead, or can Golgari, now on the play with some tools from sideboard, deal with this combo deck?
I think if I'm playing the Omniscience side, I think I'm not... compared to the mid-range decks, the non-blue decks you could be facing, I think Golgari is one of those that I least want to face. I think it is a good matchup, but it is the one that is the most scary because they have so many lines of interaction. So from the Omniscience side, let's see, we are seeing a few different sideboard options here. The main one is the 2 copies of Overlord of the Mistmoors.
Ooh.
As like a different sideboard plan. I think that card will be quite important in this matchup. It's even a quite realistic plan to just reanimate that with Abuelo's Awakening, since it is an enchantment, or just impending it and then waiting your time, essentially forcing the Golgari player to put you under pressure.
Yeah, and we are seeing here loopy sideboard right now on the screen, and that is like Clarion Conqueror, which is a new card from Tarkir, as well as Voice of Victory, another new card from Tarkir. So Tarkir making quite a bit of impact here in Standards.
Yeah, Clarion Conqueror here being actually quite important as a way to deal with Ghost Vacuum. It says activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers can't be activated. This will also shut off the Llanowar elves, but not too much more from the Golgari deck. So I wonder if they're going to come in, or if you'd rather deal with the Ghost Vacuum by removing it directly with stuff like Cathar Commando.
Yeah, a lot of different options here for our combo player.
But it does make sense that you can bring in this Clarion Conqueror, and the Golgari deck is incentivized to cut as much of their removal as possible. The cut downs tend to be better than Go for the Throat, because it's a 1-mana answer to the Omniscience combo, as the Omniscience will just be a 1/1. So it might be attempting to like leave those in the deck, but since it's open deck list and you see the Clarion Conquerors, you know that you can't do that. You have to leave the Go for the Throats in your deck, but you can only keep like a couple of them. So actually a ton of cards you want to remove from your deck from the Golgari side. Here we see that sideboard I mentioned earlier. 3 Deep Cavern Bats, probably 2 Archfiends coming in, probably definitely the Ghost Vacuums and the Heritage Reclamations. Reclamation, a new card as well from Tarkir. The relevant mode here is exile target card from a graveyard.
I love that. I mean, card being pretty flexible, and again, Tarkir cards making their way into the standard format, and not only. Tarkir has been a very interesting set to see grow, and I think Frank had a segment on the most played cards from Tarkir that we saw a bit yesterday.
Yes, he did indeed. I even wonder if these annexes are coming in. I think there might be. I think this might be like almost like boarding in 15 cards. It could be. Probably the Vivians are too slow, so you're going to leave those in the sideboard. The Outrageous Robbery, yeah, also not quite what you want in this matchup, but the rest of the 12 cards could come in, and there are enough removal spells and dinky creatures, like for instance the Obstinate Bailiff that you could cut here. I also note actually there is a Tarkir card in the main deck for Mako here. It is the Scavenger Region, which is the dragon, the black dragon that lets you board wipe on its omen, which I assume is actually also going to come out here. So
you know what's funny is that one of the few creatures that the opponent is playing is a dragon.
Oh, true. Yeah. So it says kill all like non-dragon creatures.
-X, -X, yeah. All non-dragon creatures.
It doesn't even work. To be fair, you would have to use 9 mana to kill the meringue anyways.
And when your opponent plays the meringue, you're dead, so...
Yeah. But love a lemon meringue pie.
Yeah, both players here getting ready for this game 2. Now the Golgari player on the play, wanting to start very early, ramping with Llanowar Elf into some big spells and applying some pressure. Playing also Shieldred the Apocalypse, right? So that's another card that once was standard shining card that a lot of people thought deserved to be banned. Now, not so much. I mean, standard evolving, getting quite strong. And Simon, when did you start playing Magic?
2011.
So since 2011 until now, do you feel like standard has evolved a lot and the power level of standards?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I even wonder, we had the, like back in 2011 when I started, we had the scare of Coreblade, one of the like famous standard decks to get banned. And I wonder if Coreblade could actually hold a torch to the current standard decks. Yeah, I don't know, maybe we need to team up with some video makers and set up that grudge match at some point.
Yeah, I mean, standard definitely evolving the power level. Foundations being a nice little addition to get more of those epic Magic cards, and we are already starting with a turn 1, the rest, I guess. Let's get into the game. Yeah, that's a
and a creature heavy hand from Guillermo.
2 Overlords.
Yes, just 2 Overlords and Meringue River Region, and then that temporary lockdown that was immediately chucked into the graveyard because that was the only target anyways. So, yeah, this hand actually quite duress proof, but it's not that proof against these 2 copies of Deep Cavern Bat in Marco's hand. And so these bats can go ahead and take away each of these Overlords, and because the lockdown was taken away, it's actually perfect for Marco because that means these bats are now safe.
Yeah, and whatever card was on top, Loopy here decided to keep it on top with the land, and it was another land.
Yeah, because like from Guillermo's perspective, you just need to make sure that you're guaranteed your 4th land drop. Because if you miss your 4th land drop in this position, you are in a bad spot. I think there is a small argument that you're supposed to put that into the graveyard, because if you draw the 5th land, it's not as useful in this position, but you didn't know that there were 2 Deep Cavern Bats coming in and taking away your gas.
So are you saying that he's in a bad spot?
Ooh. Yes.
Okay, so now Loopy here having access.
Oh, the Clarion region is also a dragon, so that will pick up the Roiling Dragonstorm and allowing for more card advantage. That actually makes so much sense.
A lot of dragons in these decks.
Yeah, I wonder if you just discard the Moment of Truth and just keep both dragons in hand here and just try and like just stop these bats from attacking you by just playing a couple dragons.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the case here.
You could also, yeah, I think this is exactly what Guillermo wants to do here. Keeping the high impact creatures in hand. It also means that if there's a second duress, you're once again protected from that by only having creatures. And that's a Heritage Reclamation being picked up there. This card has 3 modes. Destroy target artifact, not relevant. Destroy target enchantment, can be relevant against Temporary Lockdown, or of course the combo. Or exile up to 1 card from a graveyard, draw a card. And so neither of these modes really work against just an army of dragons here, which is what we might see. So I wonder if Marco is actually going to point this Heritage Reclamation to kill the Roiling Dragonstorm before it is returned to hand.
We might see that, so...
Marco actually had to keep in this Harvest of Misery in his deck. That is not what he wanted to do, but I guess it is an answer to Overlord of the Mistmoors in a sense. So I can see how that would make sense to keep that card in hand. And yeah, Marco letting this Roiling Dragonstorm be bounced, can still use the Heritage Reclamation just essentially to cycle, just draw a new card. Can't really play the Harvest of Misery here though. Can't really attack with these bats, because then your opponent will just get back their Overlord. So yeah, you just have to play Llanowar Elf, and this is just, Marco's draw is just not lining up. You can't put pressure on, you can't use your answers to answer Guillermo's threats. And here are the 3 copies of Moraine River Regent now.
Oh wow.
So many coming down.
Almost a playset here. And
deciding to just draw 3 cards in the main phase, trying to hit that land drop so you can slam the next 2 dragons. And you can even like play the dragons and bounce the Deep Cavern Bats, forcing them to be replayed and take away the Overlords again. Because if they aren't replayed, you could then follow up that Regent with an Overlord in like a couple turns time. I think we saw 1 land drawn there, so no 6th land guaranteed at the moment for Guillermo, but there was a Beza as well. So Guillermo really like moving in on this, just having a bunch of creatures.
yeah, I think it's kind of awkward for Marco. The only creature that he can play will wipe his board, that Llanowar Wealth cannot be activated because of the Clarion on the other side. Just passing the turn. Bats cannot attack. That 3/3 flyer, pretty good blocker here.
Yes.
Land.
Yeah, it's just lining up so well. And like Marco could, of course, combine Harvest of Misery's discard ability with one of these attacks. But the issue is, I mean, I guess you could do that with Llanowar specifically, but you definitely don't want to do that with the Deep Cavern Bats.
Looks like Loopy here saying I played land, but can I go back? And going back probably because of Beza, because if you don't play land, then the Beza will create you a threat.
Ah, I see. So maybe wanting to play the Beza first before playing the River Regent, because the Meringue doesn't actually have a good target right now, and you'd rather just play out the Roiling Dragonstorm first, so that you get to create more card advantage when you play the Meringue. This sideboard strategy from Guillermo just looking so wonderful at this juncture. Making a treasure token, not drawing any cards, gaining some life, and making the fish. Yeah, you're right.
Probably just waiting there for the tokens.
Yes, sometimes when you order fish at a restaurant, they have to go catch it first, and that's exactly the same dynamic that we see at plays here, where, yes, freshly caught fish onto the feature match table. That's a trout and a salmon.
Yeah, let's draw 2 cards and discard 1.
And yes, astute viewers who also watched yesterday will know that those are the only 2 fish names I know in English.
And now going to discard, let's see what? Get loss, we have, I believe, a blast zone.
And deciding to keep the blast zone, because if you level that up to 2, you can blow up these deep cavern bats and get back 2 overlords and just be, you're just out mid-ranging the mid-range deck, because it had to board in all of these awkward and useless cards. Okay, here we see the Tranquil Fillback. That can actually take care of the Dragon Storm, stopping the card advantage engine from Guglielmo at least.
Ability because of the Clarion or no?
It's not an activated ability, it's a triggered ability because it says when it enters.
That's perfect then, it does dodge that.
You recognize activated abilities by a colon in the text box, such as the colon after the tap symbol on Llanowar Elf. That ability cannot be activated. Llanowar Elf cannot tap for mana at this moment.
That blast zone entering with 1 counter on it.
Oh, and now Beza is getting frisky. No good blocks available for Marco. It realizes that yes, my Llanowar Elf can't block, so you can't go ahead and use the Tranquil Fillback combined with a Harvest of Misery block.
So this is an Azorius mid-range deck, right?
Yes, it is. You know what deck it looks like? It looks like Jeskai Control. Right? This is the exact same game plan. So player the meringue, bounce the 2 bats saying, yeah, you have to play both of these next turn, otherwise you're in trouble, mister.
I think Marco is already in trouble, to be honest.
To be fair, you're right. Oh, and actually, I feel like that was could have been attacked with the dragon there as well, just getting in a little bit extra damage with the Clarion Conqueror there. Leading to block, but
there.
All is good. There's a Sentinel, but the issue is you can't play Sentinel on both bats, I don't think, unless there's another land in hand. And so you can't actually play the Sentinel here because the Clarion Conqueror is shutting off that Llanowar Elf. I love how that interaction is coming up and being so relevant, even in these late stages of the game.
That's true. Okay, first bat.
And oh, but there's a counter spell for it. The change the equation was boarded in from Guglielmo, even though there are no red. I guess it can also counter expensive green cards, so it makes sense. You can hit a Sentinel with that one, or a two-cost spell such as these Deep Cavern Bats. And yeah, now Marco is in trouble. Like you don't even. There's no point in playing the second bat now because, well, there's going to be 2 overlords for it to take anyway, so it doesn't move you forward.
Maybe then.
And yeah, Guglielmo just showing his hand of all bangers. I wonder if he even bought it out the full combo and is just all in on this mid-range game plan. We haven't seen a single Abuelos or Omniscience from him. And
this Golgari deck has any board wipe? I mean, I doubt it, but Deadly Cover-Up, something like that.
If you bought it in 2 Beza, 2 Change the Equation, 2 Clarion Conqueror, 2 Get Lost, 2 Overlord of Mistmoors, that's like 10 cards. You could just cut 4 Omniscience, 4 Abuelos, the Founding the Third Path and a Thundertrap Trainer. You could just completely change your deck into this.
I love that.
I don't know if Guglielmo has done this, but honestly, looking at the cards we've seen, I don't know what else he could have cut, unless it is combo cards specifically. And yeah, it's just working out beautifully here. I love this sideboard Duke of turning into a blue-white mid-range deck with all of these big dragons and creatures taking advantage of Roiling Dragonstorm as a card advantage engine. Oh, and I see here the issue is that Llanowar Elf is being tapped for mana, but actually isn't allowed to because of this Conqueror. And I think the judge is right now checking if the headphones are up to snuff and if the players are feeling comfortable with them.
That's right. I mean, we have a recorded match and those things happen. Now, I have to say, Simon, the Golgari deck doesn't look to do so well against these Omniscience.
No, it looks pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what I told you. I always struggle. I guess it's just not just me. And I really love the way that the Omniscience deck kind of formed, as you said, into a different mid-range dragon overlord shenanigan that just does well against the Golgari mid-range that was ready to take on Graveyard Hate.
Yeah, exactly. I do think game 1, actually, the Golgari deck had a chance to win there if it had perfect knowledge. But what we see here, so that's the block with the Tranquil Thrillback on Beza and then using the Harvest of Misery essentially as a combat trick. But now we load more tokens onto the deck with these beautiful insect tokens, photorealistic insects. You would think that these are bait for the fish, but no, they're fighting alongside each other, alongside a couple dragons.
That's right.
This board state is just huge, and that Meringue River region that's in play, right? That is just attacking.
Ooh, an Arcfin of the Dross there.
Okay, so that's a 6-6. It's just not really big enough is the issue. And we even see the Deep Cavern Bat taking care of that Meringue River Regent from hand. Oh, destroy target enchantment. Yes, okay, so that's a way you can absolutely get rid of that Overlord, dealing 2 damage to Guglielmo. So like that problem is at least solved here, but the Meringue is still coming in for like attacking for 6 damage here in the air, and that's still bigger as a 6/7 than the Archfiend, and there's a second Overlord coming down. So Mako really trying to put in some damage. Of course, the Archfiend is going to help deal damage because of its triggered ability.
And I mean, you can always lose to your own Archfiend as well. If
that's dangerous, right? Like, if it needs to play defense too much, Guglielmo could just be on a game plan that just says, yeah, I'm just gonna block you out. I'm gonna use these insects to chump block the Archfiend, and then you're gonna lose. Unless you can kill your own Archfiend.
So let's see here what Lupi wants to do. Putting a fish into the Llanowar Elf and taking the rest of the damage.
Let's see.
Going to...
Yeah, going to 18 to 15 damage it should be here if the life totals are correct at this juncture.
Looks like
going to 10. Yeah, that makes more
pad.
sense because I felt like he was already at 15, I think. Was at 17 and then the Overlord got killed, putting him to 15, and then takes 5 more damage this turn. But that's a get lost off the top, completely removing those problems. And this is a lethal attack in the air, so forcing that Deep Cavern Bat to block, but does block the wrong creature and isn't even enough to survive. So Azorius Midrange takes down this match.
And congratulations here to Lupi to making it. Guglielmo Lupi advancing now at 8-1, and very good score here with Azorius Omniscience, one of the decks of the tournament as well, doing quite nicely. And I have to say, Simon, love to have not only Omniscient in Standard, but also a combo deck.
Yes.